Good evening and welcome to our daily devotional reading. I hope you had a good day. Let's close our eyes and prepare ourselves for receiving the words of the divine Plato. Asking to be transformed, not only informed. There's a lot of words in my head, but it doesn't make sense to me, so I don't know how to say it. So let's just breathe. Sometimes words is not what we need to look for. Let's just breathe. I'm recording quite late tonight. I'm really not in the mood. I've been peopling a lot and it was lovely, and energizing in the moment, but then afterwards quite exhausting. We had a type of speed dating at work, but like not romantic or things like that, like work for work things, getting to know your colleagues, seeing where there's potential for collaboration, things like that. And I wasn't aware of the fact that I'm gonna have to participate. I thought that's why I work today, so tomorrow I'm off. Yay. I thought I was just gonna be there for organizational purposes, but it was lovely. I actually suggested we do it again. I'm just really tired now. We're quite a big organization, so I spoke to many people that I've never met before, and some people that I've seen but never really spoke to, so it's a lot. So my head is not quiet, and I don't know how to still I do know how to still it by just not doing anything, but now I have to do something. Let's listen to Plato. Socrates, I cannot say that either of you should show any reluctance to take counsel and advise with me. Well, I'm showing a lot of reluctance. Lysimachus, but this is our proper business, and yours as well as ours, for I reckon you as one of us. Please then to take my place and find out from Nicias and Laches what we want to know for the sake of the youths, and talk and consult with them, for I am old and my memory is bad, and I do not remember the questions which I am going to ask, or the answers to them, and if there is an interruption, I am quite lost. I will therefore beg of you to carry on the proposed discussions by yourselves, and I will listen, and Melesias and I will act upon your conclusions. How old is this dude that has a... Socrates, let us, Nicias and Laches, comply with the request of Lysimachus and Melesias. There will be no harm in asking ourselves the questions which was first proposed to us. Who have been our own instructors in this sort of training, and whom have we made better? But the other mode of carrying on the inquiry will bring us equally to the same point, and will be more like proceeding from first principles. For if we knew that the addition of something would improve some other thing, and were able to make the addition, then clearly we must know how that about which we are advising may be best and most easily attained. Perhaps you do not understand what I mean. Then let me make my meaning plainer in this way. Suppose we knew that the addition of sight makes better the eyes, which possesses this gift, and also were able to impart sight to the eyes. Then clearly we should know the nature of sight, and should be able to advise how this gift of sight may be best and most easily attained. But if we knew neither what sight is nor what hearing is, we should not be very good medical advisers about the eyes or the ears, and about the best mode of giving sight and hearing to them. That is true, Socrates. And are not our two friends Laches at this very moment inviting us to consider in what way the gift of virtue may be imparted to their sons for the improvement of their minds? Very true. Then must we not first know the nature of virtue? For how can we advise anyone about the best mode of attaining something of which we are wholly ignorant? I do not think that we can, Socrates. Then, Laches, we may presume that we know the nature of virtue. Yes. And that which we know we must surely be able to tell. Certainly. I would not have us begun, my friend, with inquiring about the whole of virtue, for that may be more than we can accomplish. Let us first consider whether we have a sufficient knowledge of a part. The inquiry will thus probably be made easier to us. Laches, let us do as you say, Socrates. Socrates, then which of the parts of virtue shall we select? Must we not select that to which the art of fighting in armor is supposed to conduce? And is not that generally thought to be courage? Yes, certainly. Then, Laches, suppose that we first set about determining the nature of courage, and in the second place proceed to inquire how the young men may attain this quality by the help of studies and pursuits. Tell me, if you can, what is courage? Laches, indeed, Socrates, I see no difficulty in answering. He is a man of courage who does not run away, but remains at his post and fights against the enemy. There can be no mistake about that. Socrates, very good, Laches, and yet I fear that I did not express myself clearly, and therefore you have answered not the question which I intended to ask, but another. What do you mean, Socrates? I will endeavor to explain. You would call a man courageous who remains at his post and fights with the enemy. Certainly I should. And so should I, but what would you say of another man who fights flying instead of remaining? How flying? Why, as the Scythians are said to flight, flying as well as pursuing, and as Homer says in praise of the horses of Aeneas, that they knew how to pursue and fly quickly hither and thither. And he passes an encomium on Aeneas himself, as having a knowledge of fear or flight, and calls him an author of fear or flight. Yes, Socrates, and there Homer is right, for he was speaking of chariots, as you were speaking of the Scythian cavalry, who have that way of fighting, but the heavy-armed Greek fights, as I say, remaining in his rank. And yet, Laches, you must accept the Macedonians at Plataea, who, when they came upon the light shields of the Persians, are said not to have been willing to stand and fight, and to have fled, but when the ranks of the Persians were broken, they turned upon them like cavalry, and won the battle of Plataea. That is true. That was my meaning when I said that I was to blame in having put my question badly, and that this was the reason of your answering badly. For I meant to ask you not only about the courage of heavy-armed soldiers, but about the courage of cavalry and every other style of soldier, and not only who are courageous in war, but who are courageous in perils by sea, and who in disease, or in poverty, or again in politics are courageous, and not only who are courageous against pain or fear, but mighty to contend against desires and pleasures, either fixed in their rank or turning upon their enemy. There is this sort of courage, is there not, Laches? Certainly, Socrates. The courage to be comes to mind. Socrates, and all these are courageous, but some have courage in pleasures, and some in pains, some in desires, and some in fears, and some are cowards under the same conditions, as I should imagine. Very true. Now I was asking about courage and cowardice in general, and I will begin with courage, and once more ask, what is that common quality which is the same in all these cases, and which is called courage? Do you now understand what I mean? Not overly well. I mean this, as I might ask, what is that quality which is called quickness, and which is found in running, in playing the guitar, in speaking, in learning, and many other similar actions, or rather which we possess in nearly every action that is worth mentioning, of arms, legs, mouth, voice, mind. Would you not apply the term quickness to all of them? Quite true. And suppose I were to be asked by someone, what is that common quality, Socrates, which in all these uses the word you call quickness? I should say the quality which accomplishes much in a little time, whether in running, speaking, or in any other sort of action. You would be quite correct. accomplishing much in a little time, a short amount of time. In a little time. And now, Laches, do you try to tell me in like manner what is that common quality which is called courage, and which includes all the various uses of the term, when applied both to pleasure and pain, and in all the cases in which I was just now referring? Laches, I should say that courage is a sort of endurance of the soul, if I am to speak of the universal nature which pervades them all. Socrates, but that is what we must do if we are to answer the question. And yet I cannot say that every kind of endurance is, in my opinion, to be deemed courage. Hear my reason. I am sure, Laches, that you would consider courage to be a very noble quality. Most noble, certainly. And you would say that a wise endurance is also good and noble, very noble. But what would you say of a foolish endurance? Is that not, on the other hand, to be regarded as evil and hurtful? True. And is anything noble which is evil and hurtful? I ought not to say that, Socrates. Then you would not admit that sort of endurance to be courage, for it is not noble, but courage is noble. You are right. Then, according to you, only the wise endurance is courage. True. But as to the epithet wise, wise in what? In all things small as well as great? For example, if a man shows the quality of endurance in spending his money wisely, knowing that by spending he will acquire more in the end, do you call him courageous? Assuredly not. Or, for example, if a man is a physician and his son or some patient of his has inflammation of the lungs and begs that he may be allowed to eat or drink something, and the other is firm and refuses, is that courage? No, that is not courage at all, any more than the last. Again, take the case of one who endures in war and is willing to fight, and wisely calculates, and knows that others will help him, and that there will be fewer and inferior men against him than there are with him. And suppose that he has also advantages of position. Would you say of such a one who endures with all this wisdom and preparation, that he or some man in the opposing army who is in the opposite circumstances to these, and yet endures and remains at his post, is the braver? I should say the latter, Socrates, was the braver. But surely this is foolish endurance in comparison with the other. Yeah, that is true. Then you would say that he who in an engagement of cavalry endures, having the knowledge of horsemanship, is not so courageous as he who endures, having no such knowledge. So I should say. And he who endures having a knowledge of the use of the sling or the bow, or of any other art, is not so courageous as he who endures not having such knowledge. I am the bravest because clearly I know nothing, and here I am enduring. True. And he who descends into a well and dives and holds out in this or any similar action, having no knowledge of diving or the like, is, as you would say, more courageous than those who have this knowledge. Why, Socrates, what else can a man say? Nothing, if that is what he thinks. But that is what I think. And yet men who thus run risk and endure are foolish lachets, in comparison of those who do the same things, having the skill to do them. That is true. Thus far our scripture of the evening. Why do we hold those who stand against all odds in honor? To dive in a well when you do not know how to. I wouldn't necessarily call that courage either, unless there is a reason to dive into the well, a very good reason, right? And the same for endurance, how to endure wisely and knowing when to give up. It's funny, I was thinking earlier, my mom has taken to telling me when I'm days like this, when she says, oh, you were clearly not in the mood. She can read it from my face. Like, then just don't do it. Which I find very odd, because she used to be the one who would make me go to parties when I was not brave enough to do so, or make me go to that audition when I was not brave enough to do so. Make me push through and endure and try. Maybe it's because then she saw the why I should do these things. And when there's a why, I suppose that justifies a lot. That makes a potentially foolish action a courageous act. I remember in one of the Dialectic into Dialogos weekends, courage was the virtue that John and Chris and 2 other people used as an example. They recorded something and showed it to us, I think. Or they did it live, I can't remember. I remember the words, but I can't remember the context, oddly. Well, I only remember Chris's words. And he said something about courage being like this. Oh my God, he's a poet. I mean, he's my Plato. So I beg forgiveness for all who love the word, for how I'm about to rip apart the beauty which he creates. But bear with me. So what he saw was like two things that's like pressing against each other, and you can bear, like, that is, what is that Greek thing? Help me. Oh, I need the logos. Two powers pressing against each other and letting go, and pressing and letting go. And you are standing on this side, and on the other side there is something you desire. And courage is moving through these pressing forces. That first step, well, I might be improvising and taking what he said a bit further, but that's, I'm sure he wouldn't mind. Courage is really that first step, that running into this phase, this space, and doing it for the sake of that which is on the other side. Because if there's nothing on the other side, that's just stupid. That's just, what's the word? What's the opposite of courage? But Aristotle probably puts the two against each other, and I've probably used the word a couple of times tonight. You know what I mean. So there needs to be a why, there needs to be something desired on the other side of endurance to make endurance wise. And then, but now at this stage, Socrates is showing how different types of endurance, even wise endurance, is not necessarily courage. So it seems like he throws in like an element of lack of knowledge. So maybe it's a type of facing the unknown. If you know what you are going to encounter, that's not courage. So there's a type of facing the unknown in courage as well. And maybe that is why, I don't know if Chris did this, but why I keep the two moving back and forth. And you don't know the speed at which they do this. So it's not that you can calculate exactly when you need to go. There's no timing. You just need to fucking risk it and just keep your eye on the ball, as they say. On the balls, in my case. Big shiny balls. I wrote down giving sight. That which we know we must surely be able to tell. And then I wrote with a question mark, know what it is before you pursue it. Because he said we need to know what courage is before we know how to cultivate it. But I had a question mark after that. And I think this is exactly what I mean with sometimes you need to pursue the unknown. How? The only words that come to my mind is that pull on your heart. Something captivates you and draws you in. And pulls you forward and off track. And that's, I think, why I did the question mark, because as I've said before, I do believe that saying, it might be Rumi, I'm not sure, as you walk the way appears. I do think we can have a faint inkling of what something is and try to cultivate it. And as we cultivate it, what it is becomes more clear. And maybe we change course completely if we're brave, if we have the courage to do so. Maybe we just need to adjust a little bit. But I think if we wait until we know or are able to define virtues before we start cultivating them, we're just never going to do that. And yeah, so suppose I waited until I could actually speak proper sentences before doing this, it would not have happened. Know what it is, that which you know you must surely be able to tell. That is something I struggle with as someone who feels or sees most things than actually know it verbally. But I do want to cultivate that skill. And I think I'm going to start with time. Rebecca wrote about time as well, and I'm not sure if I initiated it by writing something about time to her. I think Alex has an episode, I'm quite sure, with this guy, and I loved this book. So I need to watch that when I'm capable of processing words again. So not today. I noticed... So I want to buy myself a little book. I saw someone else say, you need to take notes and then go through it again if you want to really be able to speak on a topic. Because of course I speak of time, but my knowledge of time is, well, I've read books, but you know how it is. You read a book that's well written on quantum physics, for instance, and you know you get this. Like, oh, it makes so much sense. Yeah, I totally understand it. But the moment you finish the book and someone asks you about quantum physics, it's like, So I've read about time, but I don't know, I can't say what I've known, like through my mind about time. I have had many experiences, strange experiences with the concept of time. Or time, I don't know how to say that. For instance, I once experienced sinking into the past, and that's why I like to say going down into the past, because that was my experience. But I don't know what it really is. I only know what it feels like to me. Funny in this book, because I took it off the shelf and I just paged through it a little bit. On the back there, I've got written, to seek virtue and knowledge. I have no idea. And then in quotes. So I was quoting someone who said to seek virtue and knowledge. I don't know if it's a quote from this book. That would make most sense. But I've learned that whatever makes most sense is not necessarily the thing that actually happened with me. So I've read this morning. I don't feel... This heat makes me feel not up to Hegel. So, and plus, I'm busy with Aristotle. I have 2 chapters left in this book, and they're both on Aristotle. And tomorrow I want to listen to Alex and Aristotle. And on Aristotle, and someone who speaks on Aristotle. And so I'm preparing. There was something I wanted to say about this book. There's a mark, so let's see what this is. Oh, the ether, alive and sentient. Nous is the life in its highest manifestation. So in my mind then, consciousness is connected with life, and all is life. And he also says, the only possible object of the eternal thought of God is himself, the one full and perfect being, which also brings me back to relevance realization being interested in itself for its own sake, consciousness being interested in itself for its own sake. But what is that which is even a further outer circle? I don't know. Maybe if I understand time, I will know. I'm also thinking about the books that I want to take. The most important part of any journey I take is the books I take along with me. And so I've been thinking about that. I do want to take my Hegel because I want to discuss some of my footnotes with Rebecca. Although it's a thick and heavy book, and my luggage is limited. I was thinking, maybe I should take Saving Beauty. It's a fun book. I was thinking of taking Through a Looking Glass, the follow-up on Alice in Wonderland, because that's a nice, because the flight is what, an hour, less than an hour to the UK. So I don't know. Those are the books I'm considering to take along. If you want to send any brain waves my way, books that I need to consider, then I'll be open to receive it. And now I have to go be quiet. Thank you for your endurance with me and your patience. And showing up with me even when I'm not in the mood. It's part of being part of a make-believe monastery, I suppose. May the spirit of Sophia be with us.